I have a theory. You want to know my theory? My theory is that those who church hop and go from one church to another church to another church are in danger of getting divorced if they are married. Now, why do I believe in this theory? Here's why I believe in this theory. You're significantly more likely to get divorced if you go from church to church to church, especially for the men, is because you're training your wife and your kids that when things get difficult and when there's conflict, you just up and bounce and leave. Now, this is not, of course, true for every situation. Sometimes there's truly toxic churches and really unbiblical pastors over churches, and it's okay to leave. Or perhaps if you visit a new town or you move to a new town and you're looking for a church. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when people are established at a church and they're going consistently to that church, and then the pastor or somebody at that church does something or says something that they don't like. What most people do in that scenario is that they just up and leave and go find another church. But the danger in doing that is that you're implying to your wife and to your kids that if and when things get difficult, you just bounce. You don't communicate. You don't try to work things out. You just split. And statistics show that when it comes to marriage, that if you split on one marriage, you leave your first spouse, the statistics of getting divorced in your first marriage are 51%, so the stats are already against you when you get married. Now, there are ways to increase your likelihood of getting married, and one significant way is by going through premarital counseling. You increase your likelihood from a 49% of staying together to a 79%. You go up by 30% by simply going through premarital counseling. Now, for your second marriage, it jumps up to about a 79% chance for divorce. Now, if you get divorced a second time and you get married a third time, you're in the 90s, 92% likelihood of getting divorced. So what that statistic shows is that the more times you get used to just leaving a relationship rather than working it out, you get better and better and better at leaving relationships like that. So going back to church hopping, when you split from a church that you just don't like because you're unwilling to communicate, unwilling to figure it out with whatever or whoever, what you're doing is training yourself and your wife and your kids that when things get difficult, you just bounce. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that I would encourage you to stick with your church. If you've been around a church for a little while and the pastor says something or somebody does something that you don't like, go to that person and try to work it out in the same way that you should with your spouse, with your friends. You should try to work things out. Eugene Peterson said you should have long obedience in the same direction. I don't believe that's just true for marriage, but I also believe that's true for the church that you attend. Put down roots wherever you're at. Listen, nobody's perfect. No pastor is perfect. No congregation is perfect. But if you find a church that you can call home, try to stick around and work out your differences so you're training yourself on how to navigate complicated situations instead of just splitting when things get tough.